On today's show, the Cavs come from behind and beat the New York Knicks again. Darius Garland was absolutely fantastic, and I think that this team, well, I think they're ready for some playoff basketball. We'll talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, which is currently 30% off. A link is in the episode description. 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. The Cleveland Cavaliers moved to 64-17 on the season with a 108-102 come from behind victory over the New York Knicks on Friday night. Is the final road game of the season for the Cavs, their penultimate game of the season, and they, I think, sent a little bit of a message. And this was not a game that was even all the way through. The Cavs, I thought in the first quarter, did not look like they wanted to be playing basketball on Friday night against the Knicks. They looked like a team that just was only there because the schedule said, hey, you got to be in New York 7:30 this Friday night. There's going to be a game and you're supposed to be there. It's kind of how things looked for the Cavs. And of course, do have to mention Donovan Mitchell didn't play. DeAndre Hunter did not play. Sam Merrill did not play. Ty Jerome did not play in this game. So it's not as if this was a full-strength Cavs team. But early on in this game, it very much looked like the Cavs were a team that was just going through the motions, that was just trying to play 48 minutes of basketball, get on a plane, get home, do it again, and then play in games that matter starting next weekend. And then things turned around very much. In that first quarter, like I said, didn't think the effort level was great. Didn't think that the energy level was great. Thought the Knicks were very aggressive. It also helped New York that they shot the lights out in the first quarter, where they were 7 of 10 in the first from beyond the arc. I think they started 11 of 14 from three or something like that. Like, they were just red hot early. And that's a big reason why the Knicks were able to build a 23-point lead. But then after that, the Cavs turned it on. Like, the Cavs just looked once again like a championship team, despite the fact that they were missing a lot of their key players, that they were relying on guys that don't necessarily play all that often to come in and play big minutes. Jalen Tyson played 21 minutes in this game. Craig Porter Jr. played 21 minutes in this game. That stuff doesn't necessarily happen. And those guys, I thought, for the most part, stepped up. And I did think that the energy level after they were down by 23, and Kenny Atkinson called a timeout, after that moment, and it was talked about on the postgame show on FanDuel Sports Network, that Atkinson basically said to the team during that break, do you guys want to play, or should we just toss this one to the side and play the young guys for the remaining 30 some minutes of this game? And the Cavs responded the right way, because from that point on, so they were losing 48-25 at that point with 8 minutes and 50 seconds left in the second quarter. They were down 48-25. From that point on, the Cavs outscored the Knicks 83-54 in this game. They were great defensively. I thought offensively, they were really good. They weren't necessarily generating three-pointers at the same rate that we're used to seeing them do so when the team is fully healthy. I don't think that's anything to be concerned about, because the personnel is just so much different. And when Donovan Mitchell's not out there, when DeAndre Hunter's not out there, Sam Merrill's not out there, Ty Jerome's not out there, like, all four of those guys are pretty significant to the volume of threes that the Cavs shoot. When that group is missing, that number's just not going to be as high. So in that stretch where the Cavs outscored New York 83-54 over the final however many minutes that was, 33 minutes, they were 8 of 20 from three. So it's not as if they did this because, oh, they just got hot from deep. And we know that can happen in the NBA. You can win a game just because you're lights out from three. And that's kind of why the Knicks had such a big lead early on in this game. But they did this because they ramped up the intensity level on both ends of the floor. I thought offensively, the execution was better. I thought Evan Mobley was really aggressive, and his stat line's not super impressive in this game. He had 16 points. He was just 3 of 10 shooting, but he got to the line 14 times. And that, I think, is a really, really good thing. And some of I did see some things that I really liked from him. Like there was one possession, I think he actually did it back-to-back possessions, where he basically got the ball above the 3-point line and just said, OG, we're going down to the block, man. And he backed him all the way down. The first time he finished, he missed a shot, got his offensive rebound and finished. The second one, he got fouled. Like that stuff Evan was not doing that last year. I think that's a good like example of offensive improvement in what his game looks like. And I just think that's kind of a microcosm of the intensity going up because that didn't exist in the first quarter. Maybe it was, I don't even know that you can say it was the second night of a back-to-back because both these teams played on Thursday night. The Knicks played in Detroit and they lost that game. The Cavs played in Indy. They lost that game. Do I know what time the Knicks got back home? No, I don't. On the broadcast, they mentioned that the Cavs got back to New York at about 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. So I look at that and say, okay, that explains why the Cavs didn't have energy, but the Knicks had that energy early. And maybe it was because the Knicks wanted to make a statement or I guess prove to themselves that they're capable of beating a good team, because New York now with this loss moves to 0-10 on the season against the Cavs, the Celtics, and Thunder. So the Knicks right now after this loss are 50 and 31 on the season. They are 50-21 against everyone other than the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder. They're 0-10 against the 3 best teams in basketball. And I think that is something that, I talked a little bit about psychological warfare between the Cavs and Pacers. And this doesn't matter because the Cavs are not going to see the Knicks again this season. There was a scenario where the Knicks could have fallen to 4 had they lost this game, which they did, but had Indiana beat Orlando on Friday night, which they did not. The Pacers did not play anybody of consequence, and neither did the Magic, but the Magic backups beat the Pacers backups in that game. So now the Knicks are locked in at 3, and these 2 teams will not play. So this game did not actually have any significance, but New York played everybody other than Karl Anthony Towns. Karl sat with a knee injury, but Jalen Brunson played. OG Anunoby played. McCall Bridges played. Josh Hart played. Mitchell Robinson played 32 minutes. Everybody that mattered other than Towns played for the Knicks. And obviously you can't say that same thing for the Cavs because of who we already talked about was out in this game. But the fact that that is the case here, that the Cavs were down 4/9 of their rotation and still found a way to win this game without doing it because they just got hot from 3, probably says more about who the New York Knicks are than who the Cavs are, because we know the Cavs are awesome. Like we know the Cavs are a great team. We know they're a championship team. This game didn't necessarily reaffirm that for you. I do think that there are some good things to come out of this game that are certainly worth talking about. But I do think that this was just yet another example that the Cavs can do this. They can mess around for a quarter and then really a little bit more than a quarter, and then turn it on despite not having everybody and beat a really good team that was trying. Because you can't look at this game and say, oh, yeah, it didn't matter. It was the end of the season. Nobody cared. Yes, it didn't matter. Yes, it's the end of the season. But you can't watch this. You couldn't watch this game and tell me that the New York Knicks didn't care about this outcome. That was a team. And really, I thought both teams did this. I thought both teams really played to win this game. Now, the Cavs were doing so with a little bit more of a hand tied behind their back than the New York Knicks were, but both of these teams competed hard. Both of these teams played hard. The Cavs are just in a different league than New York is because they're able to do this without several of their key players. They have time and time again won games without Donovan Mitchell. I believe they are 8-1 on the season when Donovan Mitchell doesn't play. The only loss coming on Thursday against the Pacers by 2 points in a game where the only starter that played any minutes was Jarrett Allen. So that does, I think, speak to the Cavs' depth. And I think that this is another example of it, because for them to be down as many guys as they were, and to get a really good night from Max Strus, to get what I thought was a really, really good night from Isaac Okoro, who had 15 points, hit all 3 threes that he took. I thought that was really important. I thought Darius Garland was fantastic, and we're going to talk about what his fourth quarter looked like coming up in just a second. But this is a win that I think celebrates the Cavs' depth, because they beat a really good team. Are the Knicks championship contenders? No, of course not. I don't think they're anywhere near the Cavs. I don't think they're anywhere near the Celtics. I don't think they're anywhere near the Thunder. But they're in that next group of teams, whether you want to say that's a tier below or 2 tiers below. They're certainly in the next group of teams. But this was just another example of how wide that gap is between the Cavs and the Celtics and everybody else in the Eastern Conference. I think that's kind of what this week, to me, has served as. Because if the Pacers were closer, and the Pacers' record since January 1st is awesome, and they've been really good, and they're a really fun story, and they're a very good team, and I would probably pick them to beat everyone in the Eastern Conference other than the Cavs and Celtics, despite the fact that they're the 4 seed. But the Cavs backups almost beat them when they were at full strength and trying to win a game and really going for it. And I just think that this week has kind of showed, okay, the Cavs are great. And this gap between them and the Celtics and then everybody else is very significant. I think that was on display on Friday night in New York. Now, the Cavs have one more game left. Who's going to play in that? We don't know. I don't think anybody should. I'll tell you why. Plus, we are going to dissect what Darius Garland did in the fourth quarter of this game at Madison Square Garden. That's all next right here on Locked on Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the very next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, you only got one more day of games left for that. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So here's how you can take advantage of that. Maybe you're staying up late on this Friday night, waiting to see, which, the West Coast games are going on as I record this. I have no idea if anyone gets to 50. I hope someone does, because that means you can save. But Saturday, typically a lazy day for a lot of people. You don't want to go out. You don't want to get food. You don't want to do that. You want to have food delivered right to your door with DoorDash. And if somebody goes for 50 on Friday, well, that means you can get 50% off, up to $10 off the very next day. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save, because like I said, when any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed. And make sure you are also subscribed to the Locked on Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. If you sign up right now, you'll be entered to win one of these prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Just visit Locked On Daily. That is lockedondaily.com between now and April 30th to be automatically entered to win. You can win. Doesn't cost you anything, but you can win big. You should do it. Go sign up for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter right now. So Darius Garland's fourth quarter was phenomenal in this game. He scored 13 of his 26 points in the fourth quarter. In that final period, he was a perfect 6 of 6 from the floor. So he got all of his points from the floor. It wasn't as if he was just getting to the free throw line and making things work there to get it done. He could not be stopped by the New York Knicks defense. He hit that big three over Jalen Brunson. He was able to get to the basket. He was able to do whatever he wanted. And he played the final 8 minutes and 42 seconds of this game. He scored or assisted on every basket except for one in that time. So in the final 8:42, the Cavs made 9 field goals. And of course, they added some points at the free throw line too that Darius Garland was not part of. But they made 9 field goals. Darius made 6 of them, had 2 dimes. The other one was a Max Strus 3 that Evan Mobley assisted on. He was absolutely awesome. And I think that this is kind of the perfect way to end Darius's campaign. And I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. I would imagine he doesn't. I don't think he should. But if you think back to maybe one of the first moments where it was like, oh, this Cavs team could be pretty special. It was at the end of October when the Cavs went to New York for the first time. Because the first 3 games that the Cavs played were against Toronto, who's a stinky team, against Detroit, who at the time we thought were not going to be very good. Of course, the Pistons are now a pretty good team, but at the time they were not expected to be that. They were thought to be, this is going to be a rough rebuild for JB Bickerstaff. That's a game the Cavs should win big, and they did win big. And then they played the Washington Wizards, who, much like the first 2 teams we just talked about, were and are a very stinky team. Well, then the Cavs go to New York on October 28th, and they win that game 110-104 because Darius Garland went nuts in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter of that game, Garland had 15 points on 5 of 7 shooting, hit 3 threes, made both free throws that he took, had an assist, had 2 steals. He was awesome. He was the reason why the Cavs were able to get a win, because they won that game where with Donovan Mitchell not necessarily having the best game, certainly not having the same caliber of fourth quarter. Like Mitchell had 25 points on 17 shots. It's a good game, but Garland finished with 34. And that was sort of, I think, the, Darius Garland is back moment that we got earlier this season. And also this Cavs team might actually be really, really good moment, because that was the 4th win. It was the first win in a game that they weren't necessarily favored to win. And I just think that, that mattered. And then this, which I think should be the final regular season game that Darius Garland plays in, he does the same thing. And there have obviously been ups and there have been downs between October 28th and April 11th. From game 4 to game 81, there's a lot that happens in between. But I think that this game just sort of proves that Darius Garland is ready to go for the postseason. And when you look at what he's done lately, it's not just this game, because he was awesome in this game. It's the game against Chicago where he had 28 points on 17 shots. And this game, I think, was probably a little bit more complete with the playmaking, considering he had 13 assists against New York. But overall, I think that this past week has just been a sign, really, since that Kings game. And I understand that it's a 2-game sample size since then, but he's been awesome. And I think that he is back to being what Darius Garland has been for most of this year. And I just think that as he gets more rest this upcoming week, and, it is Friday night right now as I record this, I don't think we should see Darius Garland play in a basketball game until Sunday, April 20th. To me, it sounds like there's a lot of rest, recovery. There will be scrimmaging in there. Like, it's not as if he's just going to sit and do nothing the entire time. But I think that this is a really good endpoint for Darius Garland's season. And I think it's kind of the same thing for the Cavs overall. Like, yes, they have a game on Sunday. I don't necessarily think that anyone other than Jarrett Allen should play. And I think Jarrett Allen should lace him up. I think he should go out there for the opening tip. I think that he should not jump on the opening tip. I don't know who's going to be playing for the Pacers, but he should let whoever that is win the opening tip. And then he should foul that player, and then he should walk to the bench and untie his shoes. That's what I think Jarrett Allen's Sunday should be, so that he gets credit for playing in all 82 games. Like, that is what it should be. Nobody else should play, because I think that this is the perfect spot for this season to end. And yes, that game has to be played. It's going to count whether they win or lose. They will either be 64-18, or they will be, 64-18, or they will be 65-17. That's going to be their final record, and that's going to be determined on Sunday. But this is a great point for the season end, because they beat a really good team. They did so in come from behind fashion. They did so despite not being fully equipped with all of their best players. they did so in a way that they can look at this and say, you know what? We've gone through some rough patches. Maybe since that game against the Boston Celtics at the end of February, the Cavs haven't played their best basketball. I think that's true. I think even at the back end of that winning streak, it's like, this team's not playing great. I think that the eyes for them have been on the postseason for a while. I think since that night in Boston, they've known, okay, we're going to be the 1 seed. We're going to see this team again in the conference finals. You can't fast forward to the end of May when the conference finals are. You have to go through everything else to get there. But I think that's kind of where the eyes have been for the Cavs. And I don't expect them to overlook anybody or anything in the postseason on the way to a series against Boston. But I do think that this was one last time where the Cavs could ratchet up the intensity. They could ratchet up the defense. They could go out there and prove, hey, you know what? Despite the fact we haven't played our best, we're still really, really good. We're still a championship contender. And I think that doing this type of thing without the best or second best player in Donovan Mitchell, probably the best player in Donovan Mitchell, doing this without him and 3 other very important players, I think is a really big confidence boost to this team because they know they're championship contenders. But sometimes when you don't necessarily play your best basketball for a while, and the Cavs have not played their best basketball for a while, it can maybe something that you lose sight of. And I think that for this team, this is a really, really good reminder of what to come. I think it's a good reminder of what to expect in the postseason when it does get here in a little bit over a week. But I think this is a good place for the season to end for Evan Mobley, for Darius Garland. Donovan Mitchell's not going to play on Sunday. I think it's a good place for this season to end. I don't know who we see on Sunday. I think it should be a really good opportunity to get Jalen Tyson some extended playing time, get Naquan Tomlin out there, maybe see what Javonte Green can do a little bit more, see what Chuma Okeke has, see what Amani Bates can do, Luke Travers, like the end of the bench guys. Tristan Thompson will play in that game, of course, but I think it's a good opportunity to see everybody that we don't see very frequently. And the Cavs have, when you get to a certain point, all you can ask is we want to see what this team looks like fully healthy in the postseason. Now, every team has bumps and bruises, and the Cavs are not exempt from that, obviously. But they don't have anything major going on. And there's no reason to go into Sunday and give that a chance to change. They've made it to the postseason healthy. They shouldn't risk that on Sunday. Now, there were some things that happened on Friday night that didn't include the Cavs, but could affect the Cavs. We're going to talk about those things next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA playoff matchup coming to an arena near you soon. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge, but Game Time makes it so it's not anymore. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. With the all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front, so there's no surprises at checkout. That is one of my favorite things about Game Time. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it is that you want to get in the door with. Game Time can help make that happen. You could grab last-minute seats for Sunday's game. Cavs, Pacers, don't know who's going to play, but you can find last-minute seats probably at a really, really good price. And they've got seat views, so before you buy, you will see exactly what your view is going to look like, and there's no surprise fees and the lowest price guaranteed that makes you able to book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So there were a couple of other results on Friday that affected what the road through the postseason will look like for the Cavs. We know, obviously, that The Cavs are the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. We know that they are the number 2 overall seed in the NBA. That means if they get to the finals and they see anybody other than Oklahoma City, game 1 of the finals will be in Cleveland. The only place in the NBA where they could have to play game 1 other than Rocket Arena is in Oklahoma City. But what happened on Friday was the rest of the Eastern Conference was essentially figured out. There's nothing left to decide in the Eastern Conference before the play-in games next week. So the Cavs are locked in at number 1, and they have been for a while. The Boston Celtics are locked in at number 2, and they have been for a while. While the Cavs are playing the Knicks in New York on Friday, the Pacers were playing host to the Orlando Magic. Nobody played in that game of consequence for the Pacers. They sat all their starters. The Orlando Magic did the same thing. Nobody that mattered played. So the Orlando Magic backups beat the Indiana Pacers backups. What does that mean? Well, that clinched the number 3 seed for the New York Knicks. This happened like at the start of the fourth quarter when the Cavs were playing. So the Knicks will be 3. The Indiana Pacers will be 4, which means that the Pacers are on the side of the bracket with the Cavs. If the Pacers win their first round series, they will see the Cavs in the second round, because I'm going to say that I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Cavs beat the 8 seed. While that was happening, which was a very uneventful finish, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons were playing a game in Detroit. Milwaukee won that game. It, of course, did not end without fireworks, because games against the Pistons rarely do for any team. But that means the Milwaukee Bucks are locked into the number 5 seed, and the Detroit Pistons are locked into the number 6 seed. So that means the Bucks are on the same side of the bracket as the Cavs. The Cavs will, in the second round, face the winner of the Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, the Cavs swept Milwaukee this season in 4 games. They've gone 1-2 against the Pacers, 1-1 in games that starters have played, because starters didn't play the other night. And of course, these 2 teams play Sunday in a game that means nothing. So the head-to-head record against the Pacers, for all intents and purposes, is 1-1, and it's 4-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks, because all 4 of those games, of course, took place during the actual NBA season. And then the Orlando Magic have clinched the 7 seed, and the Atlanta Hawks have clinched the 8 seed. So on Tuesday, in the 7-8 game, Orlando will host Atlanta. I actually believe these 2 teams play on Sunday in a game that I can imagine nobody's going to play. Nobody that matters is going to play. But those 2 teams play on Tuesday in the 7-8 game. The winner of that game will face the Boston Celtics. The loser of that game will face the winner of the 9-10 game, which will be played in Chicago between the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls. So the winner between Chicago and Miami will face the loser of Orlando and Atlanta, and the winner of that game will face the Cavs in the first round. That game to decide the number 8 seed will take place next Friday. The 9-10 game between Miami and Chicago will be Wednesday. The 7-8 game will be Tuesday, and the game to decide the Cavs opponent will be on Friday night. And then, of course, game 1 between the Cavs and whoever the 8 seed is will be on Sunday at Rocket Arena, Sunday, April 20th. So that is what we learned elsewhere aside from the Cavs on Friday night. But there's 1 game left, and then it starts for real. Next Sunday, we are going to be talking about real, actual NBA playoff basketball with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers. I will be back right here on Locked on Cavs on Monday, hoping to line up a whip around show where I would ideally like to talk to people from all 4 play-in teams. I don't know if it's going to happen. A lot of moving pieces and parts, but I will, of course, have a show discussing if anything of consequence happens on Sunday. We'll talk about that. Plus, we will start looking ahead to the postseason, what things look like there for the Cavs. So before we get out of here, make sure you hit that thumbs up button on YouTube, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because I don't want you to miss Locked on Cavs playoff content. It's coming soon, and I don't want you to miss any of it. And if you're listening wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, make sure you hit subscribe. I don't want you to miss it either. If you're subscribed on YouTube, go subscribe where you get your podcasts. If you're subscribed on podcast platforms, go subscribe on YouTube, and tell a friend to subscribe as well, because I don't want anybody to miss Cavs playoff content that is coming very, very soon to a place to I guess, AirPods, headphones, whatever you use to listen, or your computer screen, but it's coming to a place near you very soon. So thank you again for making this show your first listen today. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day, and I'll talk to you on Monday.